Hi, I'm Lauren, a mom, former teacher, turned children's book author, and your host who joins special guests each episode as we share our top kid-lit picks for sparking hard conversations the easy way. Yep, that means everything from tackling bullying and out-of-control anger to celebrating diversity, inclusion, and leading with kindness, plus so much more. My whole mission of my own children's book series, Blooming Rose, is to provide social and emotional support tools for in and out of the classroom, and this podcast is my way to expand that mission even further. So stay tuned as we dive into this week's topic on the Blooming Books podcast. Hi guys, it's Lauren, and I'm here with our special author spotlight episode this season with the Houston-based mom, author, party planner extraordinaire, and creative guru behind her page, Cake and Confetti. So welcome, Miss Meredith Staggers, or I guess I should say thank you for welcoming into your amazing home.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Yep. So thank you so much for being on our podcast. We'll share how to connect with you and all your creative inspiration on social a little bit later. But first, we're going to get to know you a little bit more and about your book. So can you tell me a little about you, your family, and how you got into writing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a mom of 3 little girls. My oldest, Piper, is 6. Lila, my middle, is 3. And Dottie is about to turn 2.
Aww.
And it had always been a dream of mine to write a children's book. And once I became a mom and was reading books every single night, I, really noticed that there could be some improvements, some, just different stories and things that could be put out in the world. And so my goal is to write a book for each of them to have that as part of their legacy.
Yeah, that'll be an amazing keepsake too for them to pass down to their kids and all that. It's so cute. I mean, that's the great thing about making books is that they can last forever. So
yeah, it's nice to have something tangible.
Yeah. All right, I always like to kick things off with some silly and random rapid fire questions. So, you ready?
Yep, ready.
All right, number 1. What is the favorite event or theme you've planned as a event designer?
I would say my daughter Dottie's birthday party last May. It was her first birthday, and it was the Dottie Derby.
Oh.
And so it was Kentucky Derby themed, and it was so cute. We had mint juleps and all of the traditional derby flair. Everyone wore hats and just really dressed up. It was so fun. It was something so different, but something that still people talk about.
Yes,
really.
And I love the ones that are out the box, and I'm sure you put a lot of thought into that because we all go to Bluey parties and all that every day. But
exactly.
I love a good theme. I'm all about that. You were telling me a little bit about your launch party for your book. Maybe I'll ask you about that in a second too. But okay, we'll keep it rolling for now. But if you're attending a party, okay, what is the first food or beverage you're looking for? What are you grabbing first? What is your go-to must-have at a party?
Typically cheese. I would say I'm definitely first going to go to some sort of charcuterie board, especially if it's, beautiful and all of that. So with all different little fixings. So I would start there.
Yeah.
And then
that's a good
definitely
start. You can't go wrong with cheese.
To hit up some sweets too.
Well, that's why I kind of wrote this question. I was thinking, if I go to a wedding, I am not leaving without getting the cake.
Oh, for sure.
And I would preferably like a little bit of every cake, whatever kind of cakes you have.
Yes.
We had 3 different cakes for our wedding just because my grandma always used to say, oh, I like a little bit of everything, just a little slice of everything. So I'm like, I can't choose just one. So we had, I guess he didn't technically have a groom's cake. We just had 3 different cakes, and that's my favorite.
I like that.
Okay, what is the last concert or performance that you went to?
Need to Breathe.
Oh, what is that?
Yeah, they are a, they started out as a Christian band, but now they're, I would say, it's not really country music. It's more country rock, I guess. So we drove to Sugar Land to see them. We've followed them for a long time and love their music. So that was the last one that I've been to. But we're gonna go to. They're having a country music fest.
Oh, really? Oh, and because we're up in the Woodlands right now, and the Pavilion always has great concerts.
Yes, they do. Yeah. So
did you go to any rodeo concerts?
We
Houston
did
rodeo
this year. I know. We normally do. It's normally a highlight for us, and it just didn't work out with schedules this year?
Same. We were planning to go, I think, the day that Zach Brown Band was going to be there. So I was like, let's just hang around for them, see the rodeo, and you get to hang around for the concert afterwards. But I think the day we had a switch, and then it was going to be Bun B. And I'm like, I don't know if the kids are going to like Bun B. Just not exactly appropriate. But.
Okay, so this episode is set up a little different since we each season we're going to do a bonus episode where we get to really pick the brain of an author we've discussed and get into your writing process and your inspirations behind your story. So you've written the children's book You're Invited, which we discussed on our Celebrating Inclusion episode. So can you tell us a little bit about the story and what really inspired you to write it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I knew that I wanted to write a book, but I wasn't really sure about what.
Mm-hmm.
And so on Instagram, I had posted something. This is a total side story, but I had a party shop, an online party shop that was a part of my business. It was pre-COVID. And I realized that the logistics aspect of like running anything and having like physical goods to ship and, you know, to do different quantities and everything is just, I'm not a spreadsheet person, as we were talking about earlier. And so I was like, I want to do something positive with all these party supplies. And so I kind of just put it out there into the world, the Instagram universe of like, what does anyone have any ideas of what I can do? And a few people recommended contacting Texas Children's, and we went that route. There was a lot more like red tape than just like donating party supplies to them. But so I connected with a mom, and her name is Brandy, and she sent me a message about her son that was just turning 6, and he has autism and is nonverbal. And she said, my son goes to this after school program, and I would love to do something with, you know, I would love to do something for these kids, because we're entering in this age for him and his classmates in this special needs program that they're gonna start going through this and not being included, being the ones that aren't invited to the party. And it gives me goosebumps that I've told the story a million times, because it just like broke my heart. And it broke my heart not only for her son, but also for her. At the time I only had Piper, and I just was like, I cannot imagine. Like I felt so much for her, and I was like, I want to do something. Like I want to somehow spread the word, you know, like teach young kids, but also have parents learn this
parents
lesson.
Too.
Yeah. And the importance of including, I mean, we all know how it feels to be left out. Like everyone, you know, that's a human feeling that you want to be included. And I just really wanted to spread that message in a positive way. And so it was funny because we had coffee this week. She lives in the Woodlands too. She's this mom that we didn't really know. She sent me that message. That was February of 2020. So then like so I knew that I wanted to do something with this idea for, you know, little kids like her son. And then the world shut down and everything. So then it was kind of like, well, I don't know really I didn't know what it was going to, you know, turn into. And then I just one day was like, I'm going to write a children's book. This is what my book is going to be about. It is going to be about celebrating our differences and inclusivity, and just really teaching this very important message.
Yeah. Can you go through a little bit about the story itself?
Yeah,
for those that haven't read it yet?
So the book is titled You're Invited, and Piper, my oldest daughter, is the main character, and she wants to throw a party to celebrate all of her friends, and she goes through introducing each friend and how they met, or where their connection formed. And then she talks about what makes them unique. But that isn't really, like, it's, their uniqueness isn't necessarily their ability. It's, it's some
different personalities.
Yeah, different personalities.
And I think is when they get older too, like my daughter's in 3rd grade and I've seen this for a couple years now. It's like, what I love in the story is that she's got friends from this after school activity, or she's got friends from school, and you have friends that you meet all over, and it's like, how are you going to make everyone kind of come together, and I love that aspect of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so she, she's making all these invitations for her friends, and she is going through this process of highlighting each of her friends, and there's 12 friends. At the end of the book, there is the actual party, so all of her friends come together, and it really just shows that, there is room for everyone, and everyone has something unique to bring to the party and also the world.
So I'm going to jump to the last line of the story. I love it so much. During the podcast, we all read it out loud and we're tearing up at it. So can you read the last line for us and tell us why that was important for you to include?
Yeah, absolutely. So it says, we each have something uniquely special to contribute to this party and to the world.
Yes. And I just think that it's so, important to think about people that do have special needs or disabilities or whatever, and how much they do contribute to the world. Because I think a lot of times you focus on what their needs are or what accommodations and different situations that might be a good fit for them, but it's like you talk to these moms and you talk to these teachers and people that are in their lives, their families, and what a joy and a gift that they do bring. And I love that line, bringing it all together. I love talking about the 1,000,001 ways we are all unique with my kids, and I think it's so important to come from a place of appreciation and celebration, talking about what unites us, but also being inspired by our differences. But sometimes we find ourselves excluding others or avoiding situations because we're just not familiar with certain differences or quite sure how to include. Have you had conversations with your girls about feeling left out, or how to make sure we're thinking of others so that they don't feel that way?
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that I talk to Piper about a lot, just with her little friends at school and, birthday parties and play dates and all different things like that. And so I try to encourage her mindset be how would this feel if I wasn't included, and how would that make me feel? And that wouldn't make me feel very good. And so I'm better off inviting the friend, even if they might not be as close of a friend as someone else. Let's just go ahead and include them, because that you never know what a difference it could make in that friend's life.
Right. And especially at the shy ones, I think we were talking on that episode too about how her daughter befriended the shy kid that was left out, and people just didn't think of him when they were playing and stuff. And I was like, you know what? Since your daughter does that, I bet he goes home and when he's comfortable at home with his mom, and and just talks about what a difference that is in his life, just because she does something that is so seemingly small. Another book that I love with similar sentiments is by another Houston-based author. So shout out to Sarah Allison, who we actually had on to talk about her book, The Memory Keepers, for our episode on grief. But she also has one called Each of Us, and it's a story of 5 friends who come from different backgrounds, but how their friendships and experiences really enrich all of their lives. So I feel Your Invited is similar, since she has so many friends from so many backgrounds, whether it's disabilities or cultures or personalities. So now that your book baby is out into the world, what has been your favorite aspect about becoming an author?
Definitely connecting with moms.
Yeah.
As someone who shares a lot of their life on social media, I thought I had, these, I thought I was already having these conversations, these heartfelt, mom to mom moments. But since I wrote the book and published the book, I've had these raw moments with moms where they feel like they're struggling or their child has special needs, and just feels left out and they don't know what to do. And I've had these real conversations with these moms that are something like I've never experienced before.
Yeah.
And so that's really touched my life, but I also it makes me so happy that I have put something out there in the world that is able to make an impact, or, you know, they feel like, oh, there's, you know, Ava has a wheelchair, or my son's in a wheelchair, or like, I feel like he, you know, this is a relatable book.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And I mean, I think it's just kind of something that these social situations, like that's why kind of this whole podcast, you know, like SEL topics, which is social emotional learning, like we don't always think to stop and point out these kinds of things that happen throughout the day, or how they can be little teachable moments. It doesn't have to be like a big, you know, lecture every time something happens, but just to point out differences or point out, you know, how you're feeling about certain situations. Because I feel like, you know, when I was growing up, we just didn't really talk about feelings. And I think, you know, modeling behaviors and using picture books to go through different scenarios and have those conversations is so important. You know, hence this is the podcast.
Yeah, no.
For that. But
I agree.
So you know, any type of book like this, I just love. Are there any plans for a book 2 or 3 or 4?
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to write a book for each one of my girls.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be 3. But at the same time, I feel like parties are something that all kids can relate to.
Yeah.
I think
it could be
the
very
birthday
stressful
party,
too.
yes, the
Yeah.
birthday party, the being excited about it, like there is so much excitement that comes with an upcoming event or party for these little kids. Like it is, you know, what they look forward to. And so I think there's more here that I could.
Well, I love how it ties into what you do as well.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that in just a second.
So, you know, what you were saying about it doesn't have to be these big conversations. It reminds me of this analogy about it being a sponge. Like whenever we're talking to our kids, like it's just the little drip of talking about these kiddos that are these differences. Just, it doesn't have to be like this big sit down conversation.
And I think that's what gets intimidating for parents to say, oh, well, I don't know what to say and I don't know how to start this conversation.
Yeah, but it's just making it just into your normal everyday conversations, or, you know, having like the conversation starters that are in the book. That is a, you know, a great place to start, and just slowly like trickling in this kindness and inclusivity message is, I think, the most impactful. And
I think if you point it out too, then your kids kind of make a side note like, oh, this is important.
Yes.
You know, let me just take 2 seconds to be like, oh yeah, I do,
Yeah.
you know, can think about this next time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so with every episode, I'll be creating a correlating resource, which is available on our Teachers Pay Teachers page and linked in the show notes, along with a book link as well. This week I've created a party hat craft called Everyone's Invited. Don't sue me for copyright, okay?
No.
Where kids get to decorate their own party hat with descriptions from the prompts that make them special and unique. And then they can make one for a friend or loved one based on their responses as well. So I'm sure someone as creative as you can even add their own pom-poms, glitter, ribbon, whatever else they'd like. But it's really just a point to think about, okay, what would make me happy on my hat? And what would make you happy on your hat, kind of like she is with her invitations in the story.
Yeah, I love that.
So now we're going to take a minute to share our hashtag win of the week, because none of us are perfect parents or teachers. So let's celebrate what went right, even though it might look that way on Instagram, right? I'm sure you have comments on that too. So do you have a situation you've been in lately where you really felt you had a breakthrough moment or a moment of connection with one of your kiddos, or as an author, or just life in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned Brandy earlier in this story, or in the podcast episode, about like how that initial conversation with her is what inspired the book. So we randomly reconnected in DMs a few weeks ago, and, you know, by the time I sat down to write the book, I couldn't remember who sent me that message. Like years had passed. we've lived through a pandemic, all sorts of things that happened.
Everything is the before pandemic era and the post pandemic era. We have no recollection of anything in between.
I mean, truly. And so I had 2 kids, all the things between that time. And so she had sent me a message. She's like, oh, I've been following you for a while. And for some reason, something encouraged me to like scroll up in the conversation. And I scrolled up and I was like, oh my gosh.
It was you.
It was you. You inspired this book. And so we had this whole conversation. We were both crying and all this. And then I went to her profile and I was like, oh my gosh, you're in the Woodlands? Like out of all the places, you know, she lives 10 minutes from me. So that was a really cool thing. So we had coffee this week and it just was amazing. It was a full circle moment to sit down and hear about her son and the progress that he's made. And it was an amazing,
that's awesome
moment. So that was something that I'll always remember.
Yay. Okay, so before we go, can you tell us a little bit about how people can stay in touch and follow along with your creative inspirations on social, a little bit more about Cake and Confetti and what you're all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at Cake and Confetti on Instagram and also on my website, cakeandconfetti.com. I share weekly blog posts there with different party tips and tricks, and
which everything is gorgeous.
Oh, thank you,
by the way.
Thank you. So I'm going through somewhat of a brand shift right now, and really just getting back to focusing on inspiring moms to celebrate with less stress, and just my goal is to just be a resource for moms that want to have the celebration or want the birthday party or, you know, make Easter special, but they're bombarded with a million ideas.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to use my creative juices to help inspire and simplify the process for moms.
I love that because, I mean, there's a couple I follow on Instagram, and their decorations and everything, their house, of course, is like perfectly put together and over the top. And I'm just thinking, like, that must cost you like $10,000 to put up a Christmas tree, you know? And I'm like, okay, we need some more real life kind of things to make your home beautiful and make it approachable and welcoming and all the things. So,
and I think
gaining inspiration from that is great, but then like I like how you actually apply it to things that real moms can do.
Yeah, you know? And I used to do a ton of different tutorials, a ton of different ideas and all this stuff, and I was exhausted by it, and I'm like, now I'm only focusing on things that I'm actually going to do for my family. And so I don't go all out decorating for every single holiday. Like, you don't need to in order to make these magical moments. It could just be like a carrot cookie cutter, you know, it could be like something like so small. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to, you know, go all out have this like amazing tablescape or, you know, 1,000 different kids Easter activities and stuff like that. I mean, life's exhausting as it is. You really just
as a mom, you're like, you know what, if this is going to bring me joy to do it and bring my kids joy to experience it, then I'm all for it. But if it's just going to stress you out, then we ain't got time for that. Like, nobody's got time for that.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so I think that's it on this week's episode. Thank you again, Meredith, for joining us, and thank you guys for listening. I hope you've gained a couple of helpful nuggets on guiding your kids or students through some sticky situations. I can't believe this wraps up our first season, and can't wait to dive into the topics and guests we have planned for season 2 already, which will be releasing in August. So stay tuned, and we'll see you guys next time on the Blooming Books podcast, coming live from a real life home, right? Say hi, Mommy. Say thanks, Mommy. You did great. All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to the Blooming Books podcast, recorded and produced by Blooming Rose Kids. We've opted to keep our series ad-free, and if you'd like to support our efforts, please consider shopping our own custom-signed Blooming Rose books at bloomingrosekids.com and our academic materials on our Teachers Pay Teachers page. All of the books mentioned in this episode are also available via our affiliate links in the show notes. We so appreciate you being here and hope to see you next time.